I was trying to play online with my brother on Dragon Ball Fighters.
Yeah.
And I was legitimately getting like 19 frames of lag.
Oh.
It was brutal, absolutely brutal. And I was like, wait, let me just try to connect to other people. And everything before every match showed 0 bars. And I was like, I cannot abide this. Like, I can't do this. And so my brother was like, well, how about you get this power line adapter for your internet? And I was like,
Power line.
don't make the joke.
To each other's lives.
Yes, that's the joke my wife and my housemates made. Also, I hate that movie. So.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Why Do I Talk to You podcast. Y'all didn't think that we were going to come back after our 25th anniversary, whatever, who's it, but here we are.
Yeah, we kind of threatened that, didn't we?
We did, but...
I mean, not intentionally, but you never know.
No, intentionally. People
Okay.
don't like us, Dave.
Well, I like listening to us.
Yeah.
I'm our biggest fan.
I know, really.
Well,
I'm Saul Starsheep 4.
I'm Dave Gamer, Dave Naple.
All right, so this movie cast, this one is one that we had planned on doing ever since the inception of this piddly little podcast. Just talking about our favorite, movies, our top very favorite movies. And we already did mine, Ratatouille, in particular for Pixar movies. We did Ratatouille a couple of casts ago. And with Incredibles 2 having been released already by the time this cast comes out, we decided to go back to Incredibles. And this is Dave's favorite Pixar movie, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This one's top 3 for me. Ratatouille still takes the top spot. So it's still high up there, but for Dave, this is untouchable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much el numero uno.
This came out in the year 2004. This was Brad Bird's first venture with Pixar. Mm-hmm. Brad Bird, before this, he did The Iron Giant, Dave's favorite movie of all time.
I don't like that movie. We talked about that in another cast, didn't we? I forget which one.
I think so.
It came up.
Your disdain for it.
It's not rational. I haven't seen it in years. Maybe I like it now, but I have bad childhood memories with it, all right? That's all it is, so.
Anyway, so Brad Bird did that. Before then, I know he had made a name in other places, specifically The Simpsons. And Iron Giant was a massive success, a big spit into Dave's face. It was a big success, and people still love it today and whatnot. And so then he wrote and directed The Incredibles for Pixar. The movie before this for Pixar was Finding Nemo.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's Finding Nemo was before
I
this.
thought Finding Nemo came after this. Maybe we shouldn't embarrass ourselves like this.
Well, you can look it up if you want, but
I'm fairly sure. All right, fill the time. I thought this came after Monsters, Inc.?
No. Nemo came after Monsters, Inc.
Okay.
Look it up. I know I'm writing this.
I'm working on it, yeah.
So, this is in the year 2004. So still pretty early in Pixar's timeline. The concept itself seemed, pretty not typical, but like, something you'd expect out of an animated movie. It's about a family that's a superhero. It's a nuclear family of 2.5 kids and a mom and a dad, and they're all superheroes. And that was pretty much all that we knew, if I remember right.
This was back when Pixar's trailers weren't revealing like literally anything about the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a good time.
They don't really do that anymore. Which
Yeah.
is, yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It was after Finding Nemo. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't like that movie as much, so I forget about it. Anyway.
Well, I didn't really.
Not that I don't like it, but I didn't.
That's not the first movie I want to go to.
No, yeah.
It's a little too extra dramatic for me.
Anyway.
So, so that's pretty much all we knew about it at that point. Dave, how old were we when this movie came out? Like 14, 15?
15.
15. So
yeah.
Still just sort of kids.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly from me, I didn't see this in theaters.
I did not either.
For no other reason than I just didn't, I don't think. It took me a couple of years until I saw it. And when I did, man, I was blown away. Yeah. I don't recall my first time watching it.
No, it's true. I don't either. It's just like always been a part of my consciousness.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I think ever since I've known Dave, he has said that The Incredibles is his favorite Pixar movie.
Yeah.
There's so much to love from it. The animation, even back in 2004, was astounding.
Well, in 2004 it was astounding. If there's one thing I would say about this movie that has the only thing that kind of hasn't aged well is the animation, right? And it's not that it looks bad, but it does look a little dated, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
The music
It's timeless.
The music was a full on triumph. This was Michael Giacchino's
Like breakout performance.
yeah, well,
That's
yeah.
what it
Before
felt
this, he
like.
was doing Lost, and he had rocked the world with Muppet Monster Adventure, and but this was his first full length movie premiere. If I recall correctly, they first reached out to I forget his name, but the man who made the James Bond music and scored several things for that, and because that's the sort of feel that they wanted,
right? That was exactly what they were going for.
But he was like, "Listen, I'll do it for you, but I'm gonna do it my way, and I'm not gonna do it the Bond way." And they were like, "Well, you're fired. How about we get a young guy who's not going to question what we want?" Okay. And so they got Michael Giacchino. But regardless, he knocked it out of the park.
He
Everybody
absolutely
loved the
killed
score.
it. Oh my gosh.
Gordon Goodwin also of the Gordon Goodwin Big Fat Band, if you're unaware, also scored what's called the end credits, which is just the whole credit sequence for the movie.
Yeah.
And again, just
fantastic
amazing.
piece of music,
Tons
yeah.
upon tons of big bands played it after the year was. Sort of like how a lot of marching bands and school bands would play the Pirates of the Caribbean music for their things.
But we did this one in our marching band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I have such an incredible. Sorry, that's going to happen a lot, and I swear I don't mean to do it. Incredible attachment to this is because my junior year we did this music, and it was such a blast. It was such a fun show. Oh my gosh! So, yeah, it was definitely a thing in our high school band circle too. So that helps with my attachment of it. But I will definitely stand by that it's still my favorite, even apart from that. So
yeah. All right. So enough of the intro. Shall we just start talking about this?
yeah, let's do it.
If you have not seen this movie yet, there is something seriously wrong with you.
Oh, you're missing out. I won't even say anything. You're just missing out. I just feel bad for you. If you haven't seen this movie, right? I'm not going to shame you because, man, you're just already missing out. Just go see this movie.
I'm not going to shame you because you're already shameful.
The pain that you experienced not seeing this movie is more than you can really know, you know?
Well, I'm so glad you're not hyping up this movie, Dave.
It's so good.
Dave, since this is your movie, do you want to take the lead on
No,
this?
I don't.
Why not?
Because I wouldn't do it justice. You're so much better at it.
I always have to take the lead.
You're really good at the synopsis. Don't make us fight on air. What
do you mean?
It's like The Incredibles fighting in front of their kids.
Why do I talk to you? That's what we're supposed to do.
Are we just reenacting the movie where we're fighting in front of our children, the audience?
Fine.
My audience is like my children.
Fine, I guess
I love them all.
I guess I'll start.
Please do.
So we begin with this sort of TV interview with a very young Mr. Incredible. The interviewer is asking so do you have a secret identity? And everybody has a secret identity. Just sort of normalizing these superheroes a little bit. We get introduced to him, to Elastigirl, and to Frozone. Those three people.
Well, maybe the greatest character introduction of all time.
Yeah. And then we go straight into this wonderful scene where the police are chasing these robbers, right, with guns and stuff.
Yeah.
And Mr. Incredible is driving around in his incredible car and driving in a tux, but his car alerts him oh, there's something, and he looks at his watch and he's like, yeah, I've got time. And transforms into Mr. Incredible and is chasing after them in the car. He stops because this little old woman is all oh, my cat Squeaker's in the tree, and he's like, okay, stand back, man.
Certainly, ma'am.
And lifts the tree out of its roots and just shakes the cat away. But lucky for him, the robbers are going down that street, so he just smashes the robber's car with that.
It's funny. I didn't even think about it, but that's actually the first time you get introduced to. Oh, this is what his power is that he's super strong.
Oh yeah, how about that?
Yeah, I don't know.
You
It's
never
just so
actually hear
natural.
what his power is.
No, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because Mr. Incredible, you don't really get a gauge of what that is.
No, I mean, I'm sure in the trailers they'd sort of hinted at it or whatever. But
yeah.
But Elastigirl, Frozone, like, you know what they do.
No, well, yeah, it's all in the name.
It's on the name.
So then we cut really briefly to like him having a little repartee with Elastigirl.
No, because he stops this car and then he hears about another crime because apparently this city is
stolen
just on
purse,
fire,
right? Yeah.
constantly. So he goes stops this person with the stolen purse, and like Elastigirl shows up and they get all flirty, and ooh.
You need to be a little more. Ugh. Why did I
Don't do that? Gross. So bad.
Oh man! And then like
immediately
Frozone
after-
passes by and is like chasing by this helicopter, and then there's this big old crowd on the floor because like a guy's about to jump off of a skyscraper. Then he saves the guy from falling down from the skyscraper, and then he's in a bank, and then the bank vault blows up. Sheesh.
Yeah, so he's got some problems.
So the bank is being robbed by the famed notorious pyrotechnic Bomb Voyage.
Monsieur Crab!
Oh, man, this movie's great.
I love that line so much. I don't know why.
They get interrupted by this little boy who calls himself Incrediboy.
Buddy. That is his real
His
name.
name is not Buddy, Dave.
Might be Buddy. I don't know.
Who is not a super, but he is a big fanboy of Mr. Incredible, and he's got a penchant for mechanics and engineering, and like he made like flying boots and some other trinkets and gadgets and whatnot. He's about to show him his flying boots when Bon Voyage throws one onto his cape.
Sticks a bomb onto his cape, right?
So Mr. Incredible chases after him, gets the bomb off. Turns out, though, he throws the bomb onto like a train track and blows up the train track. And he has to now stop the train track Spider-Man 2 style. My goodness. With just his brute force, which is fine.
Has Spider-Man 2 come out yet at this point?
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 came out in like 2002, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
Or 2003 something. I knew that because when I saw the train scene, I was like, Spider-Man 2 much?
Spider-Man did that first.
Except his scene was a lot more dramatic.
Yeah, I was just curious about like where superhero movies sort of were when this came out,
We had Spider-Man and we had X-Men.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was about it. Yeah, because Batman Begins didn't come out until 2005. So we were just about to like begin like, the big revolution, I suppose.
Yeah.
So he can't stay for long because he keeps on saying that he has this engagement and he has to leave the police, and he drives
We're
up,
just like, huh?
yeah, he drives up to a church and back in his tux. Turns out he's getting married that day to Elastigirl and is like late. Like she's already at the altar and he just sort of like struts on down. So they get married and she's all like, as long as we both shall live, no matter what happens. It's like, hey, we're superheroes. What could happen? Oh man.
Turns out getting sued can happen.
Which, when this happened, I was like, this is interesting. Like,
Yeah.
even as a kid, I knew what suing was. And I was like, this is kind of interesting, actually. So basically, the guy that he saved from jumping off the building by catching him mid-fall and like crashing through a building,
Sues him.
He sues him.
Because after he knocks him in there, he's like, oh, I think you broke my neck. And so, yeah, turns out that he did, apparently. And so he sues him for those damages and for, not letting him commit suicide, I guess.
There's like a press conference where his like lawyer is talking to him. Then Mr. Incredible interrupts. He's like, hey, I saved your life. He's like, you didn't save my life. You wrecked my death. And that sort of sets off a chain of different events where tons of other supers are getting sued and yada yada, and it's costing the government tons of money because somehow the government has these supers' backs, even though they're not like government sanctioned.
It's weird. It never quite made sense. I mean, it's also like that I live in this era and I'm used to like Good Samaritan laws, right?
Yeah.
Where you can't do this. And actually, this is why I brought up the Matt Pet video too. Not that I want to shill for him, but it was interesting seeing him note all the things that I sort of thought about this. I was like, would that work? And it's kind of like, no, but like there is like kind of an explanation for why it happens in this movie. But which basically boils down to the laws change over time. And when this movie's actually set, a lot of those laws weren't necessarily in place yet. So it's like in a theoretical world before these existed, this could happen because like, the supers are obviously working with like the police department, which are definitely government agencies, right?
Yeah.
So the theory is like the government's kind of responsible for it for those reasons, but that's just the theory.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do what?
Dave.
What?
Dave, don't do it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't do it, Dave.
I'm not gonna do what? Next part of the movie.
So I'm so scared.
I'm like, what are you? Drink my water. I'm thirsty. I'm just getting a drink.
So anyways, we go on forward, and there's like a newsreel announcer sort of talking about things and saying that after a while there becomes this big movement to just ban superheroes, which is so needed because, you know, the whole town isn't in disarray on war every single
Seriously,
night.
yeah.
And so the government starts like the superhero relocation program or something like that.
I guess exactly what it is.
And where they just like give them, you know, secret identities basically and integrate them within like the rest of the human populace. And then we cut to like present day, which, you know, like a couple, maybe like 15 years
I
later.
think they say it's
something.
15 years later.
Yeah. And now Mr. Incredible is just like working in a misshapen cubicle for like an insurance agency.
Right next to like the pole that keeps the entire building up or whatever.
And they had presumably like sort of recently moved into the new house like 3 years ago. Yeah, we just sort of get some intro scenes to like what their life is right now. Elastigirl is just a stay-at-home mom with their baby Jack. Dash is sort of a troublemaker in his school because he you know, Dash, we all know him. He's super fast. He's the Flash.
Yeah.
And can like drop a tack on his teacher's chair like in like a mere blink of an eye. They even caught him on video and they couldn't really see what was going on.
He's a great character. Even like the throwaway characters in this movie are great. Like his teacher Bernie is like so genuine and so hilarious.
Coincidence? I think not.
Bernie.
Don't Bernie me.
Great scene.
And
all the scenes are great.
And Violet, the daughter, is like, you know, the awkward teenager who
Shrinking Violet.
She's got this crush on this preppy guy named Tony Ridinger. And then they have like a dinner scene where like Bob is just like, you know,
and she can turn invisible and throw up barriers. And Bob hates his life because he's working at a terrible insurance company where every time he tries to like actually give people their insurance money, his boss yells at him.
This movie is one of the best examples of showing and not telling.
Yeah.
There's a scene when he comes home from work. He's driving in this car that barely even fits him.
Yeah.
And like he drives on in, he steps out of his car and he slips on his skateboard. But he catches himself by grabbing onto his car. But he's super strong, so he causes like finger dents like in the top of his like car hood. And then so he can't close
the door won't shut.
So he can't close the door because the finger dents are like causing it to do that. So in anger, he slams the door shut, and so it shuts, but it slams it so hard that the glass breaks. And so he's so angry that he just picks up the car, but a kid is watching him the whole time.
Yeah.
So he just like quietly puts back down the car and then just walks on in. Not a single word spoken, not out of anybody in this one scene, but it's like, it's great. Again,
watching this movie again, and whatever, you can cut this part if you want. Like, I don't think it breaks the immersion or whatever, but the Incredibles 2 episode is in the can, so you can look forward to that one next week. But in thinking about, I never realized this about Incredible 1, but there's a lot of moments where there's no like talking, right? Like no one is telling you what's going on. It's just kind of, there's stuff happening, but you're just watching it happen, and the characters aren't talking or even interacting with each other, either because it's just sort of a solo thing where they're on their own or whatever, right? It's just kind of happening. And I never really noticed what that does for the movie, but it's so interesting for pacing and for letting the music speak for itself and letting the world speak for itself, right? Like they're just in these situations that are so cool to watch and stuff. And like not many movies do that. I think that was a really big risk that they took, but they were very confident in their ability
for
to
an animated like Disney movie too.
Especially for that, for sure.
You look at like freaking like Despicable Me, like I bet you can never find a bit of silence in that movie.
Yeah.
Even if there is like a time for there could be silence, it's probably just minions making their dumb noises.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, but like that's the kind of, and they rely a lot on their camera work, which we'll probably talk about more later. But just sort of in general, this scene, I didn't even put that to this scene, but yeah, you're right. This is a great example of a scene that just shows you exactly what's going on through his like actions and through his emotions and what's going on, and not anyone having to tell you or whatever, right? I feel like it's like there's like no music playing in this scene either.
There
actually.
isn't, yeah. Great stuff.
So, yeah.
So then they're at dinner. It's more or less just like a regular like family dinner scene with like, you know, the dad who's sort of like not caring too much, just reading the paper.
He's distracted. He's coming home from work and hates his life. And
you know, he hears about Jack getting in trouble.
Oh my gosh, you did it again.
I did it again. I've been doing this whole time, calling Dash Jack Jack,
Yeah,
or even saying Dash Dash. Like I've done that too. What's wrong with me? Oh my gosh, you did it again.
You didn't even stop to think about it. You caught yourself so many other times. You just kept on going. Like, Jack Jack, he got in trouble at school turning into fire or whatever.
I've given up, Dave. I've just given up.
Anyway, Dash gets in trouble.
Dash gets in trouble. He tells Bob about it, but like even he's all like, "They caught you on camera and you didn't get caught. Whoa, you must have been booking it." And he cuts through the plates.
Yeah, it's really cute because you could tell he's like really excited about his son's powers and stuff, and Mom's just like, "Honey, like he did a bad," and he's like, "I mean, it's but like how fast are you going?"
So they're having a family squabble. The only thing is that now Elastigirl can like harness them in that way. Dash can run really fast, and Violet can cause force fields to stop him and stuff. And then Bob comes in and just lifts the whole table, and everybody's all crazy. But then Lucius comes over for like their weekly bowling visit or something. Yeah, Lucius Frozone, if we haven't said that.
Oh, I don't think we did.
So they go quote unquote bowling. It turns out what it is that they have a police scanner in their car, and they're like talking about the glory days, but they're also listening for nearby crime so that they can relive some hero work. So they hear of a house fire, and so they rush on over to it.
It's not a house. Well, maybe like an apartment.
Oh yeah,
it's a building.
So they go in wearing robbers' masks. And they save all the people, and so Frozone is about to extinguish it. By the way, Frozone, if you don't know, is played by the wonderful Samuel L. Jackson.
Boy.
There literally could not have been anybody else to play that part but Samuel L. Jackson.
What a job he did.
So
all the voice actors. I'm not familiar with like anybody else, but
not.
Like Bob and Helen's voice actors are just already iconic to their characters for me, and they all do a fantastic job. Mm-hmm. Do you know who they are? Are they like known?
Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter.
Okay. What else are they known for?
So they can't extinguish the fire. I'm sorry.
Whatever. Fine. Screw you. I didn't want to know anyway.
No. I don't know them from anything else.
Oh, thank you.
I just know their names.
Fair enough. Okay.
So Frozone can't extinguish it because apparently his powers are contingent on the moisture in the air, which is an interesting thing to note, actually.
Well, moisture in the air or from his own body. Yeah. He can do one or the other.
So he's not only dehydrated from the fire, but it's also on fire. Yeah. And he's all like, I thought you could use the water from the air. There is no water in the air. What happened to you? Ran out of strong or something?
Ran out of muscle?
And he's like, I can't crash through these walls here. This building's going to collapse.
I wanted to go bowling.
So they end up finding a safer wall to crash through, but turns out they crash into a jewelry store with laser,
set off all the alarms,
laser motion alarms and stuff. Yeah, so the cops come on in for that. Lucius finds a little water cooler and just drinks one little bit of it and just freezes the cop.
Yeah,
this is never addressed again, but there it is.
Yeah.
All the while,
police officers.
All the while, they've been watched by this mysterious white-haired woman. So you're like, oh, that's the bad guy or something or whatever.
Yeah.
So then Bob sneaks on in home. Everybody's asleep already.
Stuffs his face with chocolate cake.
But then Elastigirl turns on the lamp and catches him reliving hero work. I mean, I guess we're assuming that he's done this a lot, and that's sort of contributed to them moving so much.
Well, yeah, something like that, or just getting in trouble with work. And I mean, Lucius talks about how they've been doing this for a while, and he's kind of done with it, and actually wants to go bowling. But Bob wants to keep doing this. He's like, all right, whatever. So they get in a fight.
They get in a fight. Yeah, it's an interesting family squabble. Sometimes you forget that these are superheroes.
Yeah.
But the family squabble is also about superhero business, but they're squabbling like you would hear any other marital squabble happening.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because Bob seems to clearly be in the wrong, but you can still feel everything he's feeling, right? You feel his frustration with the situation and just how unfair he feels like it is, but you still feel like he's being a little pig-headed, as Helen puts it later. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you kind of get it. He never strays into being unsympathetic, right? You can tell he's in the wrong, but you can tell he's really hurting at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's good character building, really.
So the next day at work, he gets called into the office by his boss, the Insure Care, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Basically, his boss has found out that all of his clients have been able to
Penetrate the bureaucracy.
navigate their way through all like the hoops and loops and stuff that these insurance companies put you through and stuff. And they've been able to like game the system somehow because Bob has been telling them all like the insider secrets. And of course the boss doesn't like that. All the while he's being reprimanded, he witnesses a mugging happening like outside. And so he's like compelled to like go out there and like do something. But then the boss is like, stop right there or you're fired. By the way, the boss is played by Wallace Shawn. You might know him as Rex or Inconceivable Guy.
Yeah, I prefer Inconceivable Guy.
And now he's had it. He breaks. So he grabs him by the throat. And
Bob grabs his boss by the throat. The boss does not grab Mr. Incredible.
I mean, I think that goes without clarification.
I don't know.
And throws him through like 4 drywall
walls,
cartoony style. Their government like agency like representative Rick Dicker like comes and like sort of like, you know, gives slight backstory that like he has to do this a lot for Bob and relocate them a lot and spend a lot of money hushing people up about what they saw and fixing things and yada yada, you know.
Yeah.
So but then Bob is all like, no, we can't move again, like we just finally got finished unpacking. I can't do this to them. But he got Mirage's thing somehow.
Well, Mirage sneaks in when he gets called into his boss's office to reprimand him and like sneaks it in with the rest of his stuff. So when he packs up his belongings to leave, he takes that with him.
So yeah, the person who was spying on Lucius and Bob earlier, her name is Mirage. She leaves this like missive in his things of like this automated like video message.
Yeah, like it looks like a tablet.
Yeah. How about that? You know, explains this like a mission of like they need the supers again. You're the one that can help, and it's all like, you know, the superheroes aren't gone. You're still here. And, you know, you can still be something great, or you can listen to police scanners.
Yeah,
you know?
And she offers him buco bucks, like triple his annual salary, or
and
whatever.
He's like watching this all in like his personal study that has like all these like newspaper clippings of his right doings and pictures and medals and yada yada. So of course he's like really attracted that it's going back to the glory days.
Yeah.
So he goes on out, or actually the message blows up.
Yeah. It sets off the fire alarm. Yeah.
And he has to start lying to his wife though, because he could have said that he got fired today for throwing his boss through 5 layers of drywall, or he could say that he is going to be sent away for like a work conference or something like that. So that's what he says. He gets sent to this like a volcano island. He's briefed on what this is. And, you know, allegedly, according to Mirage, this big tech company, they created this robot with artificial intelligence and it got out of hand. And now it's like roaming in this like forest that they live in, like all on their own. And so he needs to disarm it, basically.
Yeah.
So he puts on his old super suit that barely fits him. And he encounters the Omnidroid Mark 7. It's this big ball with these
droid.
with these like arms, and they have this big fight, and they go in like inside like the mouth of the volcano.
It's a good fight scene.
Yeah,
it's a great fight scene. It's fun seeing him kind of be older and a little out of shape. But
yeah, there were a lot of those jokes in here, but it's not a prevailing theme. Like, you know, he gets out of breath running. You see his like big gut through his super suit.
Yeah, this is another one of those moments. There's like no talking. He's just kind of running through the forest, but it's not boring.
There's like spots also where you see him like he's looking at trees because he's seeing like the splash marks from the droid and stuff. Yeah. Again, no talking.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
He even discovers how to disarm the robot without like talking to himself, like you might would in other cartoons. You know, he's not like, oh, you gonna go inside the center here. Like that.
Yeah,
you know?
It just like kind of happens. He just does it.
Yeah, it's great.
Like there's some like shouting and cheering he does in the middle of it, but it all feels very genuine, right?
Sure.
It's not like he's like saying things. He's like, ha ha, or like, yeah, or whatever. Like it's, I don't know, just a fight scene.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's good. So after that, he gets invited to dinner from a mysterious unnamed person.
Well, I mean, it's Mirage, but he like gets there a little early, and so he sees Mirage talking to this like
because somebody's
figure.
like, invite him to dinner.
Oh, right, yeah, that part.
Anyways, so he goes inside. He sees that, tries to pretend like he didn't see that, and then they have like another like smooth, suave talk with each other. He's attracted to power. So am I.
Everything's delicious.
So then starts
it's actually a good scene. They have good chemistry. Works really well.
It's really like Bondish, you know.
Yeah.
So then starts off a wonderful montage with a wonderful bit of music by Michael Giacchino. It's called Life's Incredible again.
Yeah.
This montage is of Mr. Incredible getting in shape by lifting trains.
Yeah.
And like he's becoming like a better father, like playing with Dash and, you know, like just being cuter on Violet. And you can see that like Elastigirl is like getting more physically attracted to him and stuff like that. Now during the scuffle with the Omnidroid, it ripped a bit of his super suit. So he's all like, I need to get this repaired, I guess. And so he goes to their designer, Edna Mode.
Hang on, I want to pause a sec, go back to the Life's Incredible sequence. I thought it was really cool when you pointed out, it's like, look, he's like being a better dad because he's like happy and stuff. And I feel like that really helps paint him in like a better light, you know?
Sure.
Where like, you know, he's doing bad stuff, like lying to his wife and getting involved with these people who are obviously going to be the bad guys, right? But like, it's not like he's a complete self-centered jerk, right? Like
No.
he just wants to do something that makes him feel fulfilled. And once he does that, he becomes a better husband to his wife. He becomes a better, you know, he's helping his wife a bit with like chores around the house by lifting chairs while she vacuums it or whatever. And, you know, he's just hanging out with his like kids and like enjoying time with Jack, even though he's just a baby.
Yeah.
Whereas at the beginning, he seemed like just so disinterested in life. So I feel like that really helps to paint that even though he was kind of selfish in doing that, he's not just some jerk, right? Like, yeah, he's going off and spending all day working out for himself, but it's not like he didn't earn triple his annual salary, right? Like
Sure.
he's can do that. So it's a cool scene and it really helps to humanize him and stuff. So it's neat. Anyway, Edna.
That's also probably my favorite bit of score from the movie too.
It's really good. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, people need to look that up pretty much like right now.
It's good music.
Okay, so he goes to Edna Mode, this really squat woman with some ambiguous
Giant
accent.
glasses. Yeah.
So, I mean, you figure out that like she was like a very famous like designer of super suits for heroes back in the heyday, and since then she's just like sort of become like a world famous fashion designer, and that's like not fulfilling to her, but she's like doing it because it's
because it makes the money and whatever. Yeah.
So she's happy to see Bob back, and you know, it says like, you know, I just need a patch job for old time's sake. And she's all like, oh, this is a hobo suit, darling. And so just
pretty good accent.
And just and just decides to make a whole new suit for him. Here's where the no capes joke comes in.
Yeah, it's a good joke.
Without even knowing the ending of the movie, I thought it was clever because like you always, you know, Superman has a cape. That's all you think of, you know.
We said this about Kung Fu Panda. This movie also does a whole lot of callbacks and a lot of the Chekhov's guns that are kind of subtle at first or just seem like small jokes, but then come back later, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there've already been some that I'm not thinking of, but they're everywhere in this movie, right? And it does that really good. And I just love that technique when it's done well, where things just sort of happen because, oh, they're showing you something and haha, that was funny. And then it kind of actually matters later, right? Like before, you don't really see too much of this, but like Bob is reading, like some of the stuff that Bob is reading in the paper about is Gazer Beam, one of his old super buddies, has gone missing. And like, oh, that's weird, and then that does end up mattering later, for example. So
Yeah. No, you're right.
But there are a lot of smaller ones of those that I'm definitely not thinking of off the top of my head. But yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so after this, he gets another correspondence from Mirage. At this point, Mrs. Incredible is sort of like
getting suspicious because like she sees a white hair on, I suppose I shouldn't say white hair, platinum blonde hair on like one of his business suits, and she's like, that's weird.
That's not my hair.
I guess, yeah. It's a little weird because you assume that he's at work working with other people, and that could
like oh, that must be Greta Gertie's hair.
Yeah, but anyway, they get a phone call. Mr. Incredible's insisting, like, no, I got it. Like, don't pick up.
Yeah,
I got it. And she's like,
super, yeah. So she picks up the phone anyway, and all she hears is like, you know, a woman's voice and his voice, and she's like, when can you be there? He's like, I can be there right away. So
he's like, tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
So he leaves, but she's all like, you know, like, I love you.
Yeah. Like he has no idea what's going on. He's just going to work, but she's like trying to really stress the fact that she loves him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those things I did not get as a kid.
Seriously.
Like, at all. I did not, like the thought of infidelity like never crossed my mind, which is great, right? Like again, they never say that. If you're a kid and you're just watching this movie, you're just like, oh, she's mad because she knows he's lying to her.
Exactly.
And that's where it ends, like full stop, right? And that even like where she's crying at Edna's place, she's like, oh, she's overreacting a little bit, but I can get how that'd be really really disturbing, like having your husband lie to you like that and winding up on a private island. Like never even with the line later on of her being like, oh, you unfaithful, whatever. Like I never got that it had extended all the way back here until I was older. Right. And that's so subtle and smart, right? Like it's just so good because there's so many things that they don't tell you in this movie that they could just leave for you to see and figure out when you're ready to see it. It's great. It's good.
Yeah, it's great.
Anyway, he takes off.
So he takes off and is like given like a wonderful hotel room and yada yada. Mimosa and shrimp cocktail. We don't like shrimp cocktail.
It just seems like the weirdest thing was like, here, let's give you the shrimp that we cooked, but like it got cold. But here's some like marinara sauce that we had left over from our pasta last night for you to dip it in, I guess. Like gourmet.
I'll put it in this cocktail glass.
Yeah. Shrimp doesn't go in a wine glass.
So meanwhile, though, he's like, clearly in the lap of luxury and he's all happy. Mrs. Incredible starts to vacuum his den and sees the patch job on his old hobo suit. But she knows immediately, Edna.
Yeah.
So she calls up Edna. Edna's all like, oh, you need to come over in like an hour, wonderful, wonderful darling.
You gotta come see these suits. And she's like, what are you
talking about?
Yeah.
So then we go back to Mr. Incredible. He's told to go to a meeting room at such and such time. And so he goes there. Nobody's there at this big long table with an S on it. And he's just like, well, I guess I'll just sit down. Nothing happens. And then he's ambushed by the Omnidroid Mark 10.
Yeah.
And is ambushing him, not giving him any time to react, and is pretty much just about to cut his head off.
And the whole time there's some kind of voice in the background.
He's bigger.
It's better. Yeah.
So then the robot stops, and then this guy with
crazy red hair
and the mask and the big S on him, and just kind of flies up and just all oh, this went through so many tests, but you are worth it. I mean, after all, I am your biggest fan. Buddy, my name's not Buddy.
We had a big debate of wondering of whether or not his name actually is Buddy, because it's kind of a joke at first when he first appears in the flashback that Mr. Incredible can't actually remember his name for a second.
I'd really like to think, I really want to believe that his name actually isn't Buddy.
I always assumed he was just trying to disown the name Buddy, so he insisted his name wasn't Buddy when it really was, which is, I mean, I feel like that's probably what they were going for, but it is more fun to imagine.
I just want to think his name is Steven or something really just plain.
Really not like Buddy at all.
So,
anyway.
So yeah, you find that now Incrediboy, Buddy, whatever, is now this guy called Syndrome, who again is not a super, but he has a whole bunch of tech on his side, including 0-point energy, which just freezes you in your spot.
Yeah, and he can pick you up and fling you wherever with no effort.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
But in his monologuing diatribe, he ends up throwing Mr. Incredible miles away.
Yeah, he's monologuing to Mr. Incredible because obviously he had him right where he wanted him, but he lets him go to brag about how you thought I was this, blah blah blah. And Mr. Incredible tries to throw a log at him, but he evades it and catches him anyway. And he talks about catching him monologuing, which was something calling back to the conversation that he and Lucius were having in the car.
Oh yeah,
Lucius is talking about how he's captured by Baron von whatever, and he's like, he starts monologuing, and they're just laughing at, oh, villains are so stupid.
and then he throws that at him and freezes him. He's like, you slide dog, you caught me monologuing.
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
It was great.
So he's chasing after him, and Mr. Incredible falls down this waterfall to try to evade him, but then he throws this bomb at him.
Teeny tiny little bomb.
It's like a teaspoon, but it is like a nuclear device or something. But Mr. Incredible is able to evade it and gets thrown into this underwater cavern. And finds the skeleton, fully rotted skeleton of Gazer Beam,
which is pretty impressive considering that Gazer Beam was noted missing 2.5 months before this happens or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no forensic scientist, but I think body decomp takes a lot longer than whatever.
Yeah,
so even Syndrome sends in this little drone that scans for life forms, but Mr. Incredible hides behind the corpse of Gazer Beam and it doesn't sense him. Gazer Beam apparently before he died died. Because like I guess Gazarim is like a Cyclops X-Men type
I'm pretty
person.
sure that's what's going on.
And he spelled out the word Kronos with a K, like in his like final moments or
and
whatever.
like the cave wall and stalactites and stuff.
So Mr. Incredible just remembers this. And so then the next few scenes, we go back to Elastigirl actually at Edna Mode's place. And Edna like shows this full array of super suits that she made for all the family.
Yeah.
And all the while Elastigirl is just like, what do you do? Why did you do this? But then like Edna is all like, oh, I thought that Roberts would have told you.
Yeah.
Yada, yada. He was like, well, do you know where he is? And she's like, well, he's on the work. Do you know where he is? And calls InsureCare. They're all like, my records show he was fired like
2
a
months
long time ago.
Yeah.
So then, all this time also, Mr. Incredible is like sleuthing around, trying to sneak in through the compound. And
Great
everything
camera
like
work
that.
throughout this entire. It's hard to describe this scene because this is one of the coolest scenes in the movie. But like, really, you can describe it as simply as he's sneaking around the compound trying to get into, find where they're hiding or get behind this lava wall where he saw people go in and out of before. But a lot actually happens. Like, it's a lot of cool camera work of him like beating up these like faceless minion dudes
no
and stuff.
dialogue.
With no dialogue in their
Yeah.
little circle pod and like hucking it across the island at some of them in the moonlight and just these great shots all everywhere.
The cinematography is so just like refined and sophisticated.
Yeah.
Like, it really is like how top directors direct their live action movies,
Yeah, it's stuff that I feel like animated movie makers like feel like isn't necessary for their movies. Or, like you don't need to think about camera work because you're not using a camera. It's just however you want to draw them, right? But the theory is the same. It's like you're looking at a camera.
Yeah.
Which is a strange way to think of it, since you would think you wouldn't want to feel like you're looking through a camera, like to make it more, I don't know, immersive. And yet it's just the perspective, right? Just the perspective it gives you is always very professional and always very interesting shots. So yeah,
So he sneaks through to this computer mainframe, and first thing it asks is for a password, and so he immediately puts in Kronos, and that boy was that simple.
How did he get that password, Gazer Beam? I don't know.
Yeah, how about
What killed him? Whatever. I don't understand anything having to do with Gazer Beam.
So luckily he has like a 1 million inch screen, and it shows him like his whole plan. First of all, it shows a database of all these supers, and he finds out that Syndrome has actually gone through like a whole mess of
dozens
supers.
of supers, yeah.
Basically the same way he got Mr. Incredible. They were like discovered, and they sent them to the island under these these false pretenses, and the Omnidroid killed them.
Yeah.
And if they destroyed the Omnidroid, they just made a more powerful one, and then that eventually killed them too.
Yep.
He looks up, if they found Elastigirl, they haven't. He looks up if they found Frozone, they obviously have. And then he looks up the evil plan, but it's all like animatics, so you don't really know exactly what it is. You just see like rocket drop ball attack city.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Bad. And then it's like, oh, by the way, this is happening in like 8 hours.
Yeah,
It's like, shoot, maybe do something about that.
So back at Edna's, Edna reveals that she put a GPS tracker in each of the suits, including Bob's. So she's like, all you have to do is just push this button. And so she does. It tracks where he is, but it also makes a ruckus inside the mainframe room that the security detail turns on.
Yep.
And it shoots like these expanding, like sticky balls of lead.
That's what they seem like. Yeah, it's nothing that could really exist, but they shoot this like goop that lands on Mr. Incredible. He's like, what the? And he like picks it off himself, but it sticks on his hand and it's getting bigger. And he's like, uh-oh. But like, there's like hundreds of these things on the wall just pelting everything. How do you clean that up? What if some of that gets on your computer? That stuff's never coming off.
Those workers are just like, oh, not again.
Oh, God.
The last job took 3 months.
Yeah, gosh. Anyway, he gets gooped.
He gets gooped. And Mrs. Incredible just assumes that the infidelity is correct, and she's like crying.
She's
in
like
front
breaking
of Edna.
down,
Yeah.
and Edna's just not having it.
She's all like, what am I gonna do? And she's like, what do you mean? Like, you're Elastigirl, and so just like,
Because Edna is very pro superhero, right? She's
Yeah.
like, super stuff. Like, you need to remind him that he's Mr. Incredible and he's awesome. And he's a Mr. Incredible and you're a freaking Elastigirl and you're not going to take this crap. Like, you go do that. And then visit me when you get back.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's preparing to leave, basically. She's preparing to leave for quite a while. Dash discovers the super suit because she decides to pack hers just in case.
Yeah.
And Violet discovers the super suit also, and yada yada. She then calls up an old buddy Snog for an airplane favor. So they're flying off.
Yep.
And back at the island. So yeah, Mr. Incredible is taken into captivity, and Syndrome. So Syndrome, for a while, since he was introduced as Buddy, Incredible Boy,
yeah,
he seems sort of just like, whiny boy, sort of like whatever like that. Somehow he doesn't lose his character, but it definitely gets a little more menacing.
Yeah, he gets for real in this scene.
Yeah.
Right? Like at this scene, you're like, this guy's a fun villain. Like he's very energetic and charismatic and like fun to watch do crazy stuff, right? But this is where it's like, oh, you're really a douche. Like basically, like you are actually really evil. Like, okay.
So he goes to interrogate Mr. Incredible. He's all like, you, sir, truly are Mr. Incredible. And like, reveals like everything that he did to hide from him. And then he's like, and then you had to ruin it by calling for help.
Yep.
Who'd you call? And he's like, oh, what are you talking about? And like shocks him and tortures him and stuff. And then sees that the plane that Elastigirl's flying is like within their radars now too. And so it's like, who'd you call? Who'd you call? He's like, I didn't call anybody. So then he sends out 2 missiles.
Well, he plays the audio of, because you see Helen in the plane like saying India Golf 909 requesting landing or whatever, and like no one's getting back to her, so she puts on the suit and finds out, oh, the kids are on the plane, like this is not what I wanted, and so she's like kind of dealing with that. But then you get back to Bob and he plays the recording of her, and Bob's like, oh. Like you just see his eyes get really big. I think he says like Helen under his breath actually, and then Syndrome's like, oh, you do know? Well, then I'll just send them a little greeting. And he fires missiles at him.
Mm-hmm. This is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie.
This is one of the best scenes you're going to see in like animated filmmaking.
I think no matter how many times I see this movie and I see this scene, it still gets my heart racing.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, Mrs. Incredible is some sort of like trained pilot and is evading these missiles and even like, stopping some of them, but like more keep coming.
And she's like frantically calling them like, abort missiles. Like, please stop, please
She
stop.
keeps on shouting at Violet to create a force field around the plane, but she's like, but you were not allowed to use our powers. And she's like, I know what I said. You just need to do it. And stressing her out and stuff.
Yeah,
the camera work
like,
is
the
camera work is super short and super cut.
The way the missiles will like pop out from behind the clouds or appear is always really menacing. Mm-hmm. It's really good.
And then it comes to like that head where she's just like, abort.
And she says like there's like kids aboard, and Mr. Incredible's like, no, like turn off the missiles. And Syndrome's like, oh nope, not gonna do it.
So eventually Elastigirl just knows like this plane is going to go. So in like the last split second, she runs over and covers the kids with her explosion proof super suit.
Which was foreshadowed by Edna, where she literally fired missiles at her suit.
And they're all fine. She comes to midair and grabs the kids and turns to a parachute. And they avoid like the flaming wreckage and stuff. And all they can see from the island is that it was a direct hit. And so they don't see any survivors. And so Bob is left to believe that nobody survived and that he lost his entire family.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's a short scene where he is able to like break through like the electricity.
While Syndrome is like gloating in front of him, he like forces his way through the electricity enough to try to grab him, but I almost said Mystique, wrong movie. Mirage pushes him out of the way and he winds up grabbing her instead and basically starts threatening to snap her like a twig.
He's just all like Show me.
Yeah. Syndrome calls his bluff and he lets her go, but he is like obviously a broken man. Mm-hmm. And like you can hear him crying in the background, which is like really sad actually. Like think about it now.
They never focus on him entirely. You just hear it. Yeah.
No, and it's really in the background, so you can miss it if it's like too quiet or whatever.
No, I've always noticed it.
I've missed it from time to time, but anyway, but Mystique.
You did
Mirage.
it again.
Yeah, I guess that's mine. Dash. Mirage is obviously very shooken up by this whole event. Like she, even during the missile scene, she was kind of like, really? You're not going to call that off? All right, I guess. But now she's really like, he was pretty much like, let me die.
You're kind of awful, aren't you?
But yeah. Anyway, cut back to the kids and Mrs. Incredible.
So Mrs. Incredible forms into a boat, and Dash
Shape of
forms
a boat.
forms into a boat motor, and
Form of a giant boat motor.
and they just ride on over to the island.
All the while, Violet is just like kind of looking sadly at the ground and just
Yeah.
like not happy and obviously very introspective about the whole thing.
She explains to the kids that she needs to go off on her own, but
They find
you
like
know,
a cave to hang out in for
but
the night.
if anybody like bad finds them, they need to not hesitate and use their powers to make sure they wear their masks because their identity is their most important attribute.
Blah blah blah.
Violet goes and like apologizes to her for like freaking out back there, but she was all like, no, it's okay. You know, I was wrong to try to pressure you, yada yada.
Which is like, it's one of those things where you can see both sides, right? Like at first you're just like, come on, Violet, like you're a superhero, just do it. But then you think about it as like, she's like never used her powers like this at all.
Right.
Like on the plane, you see her like kind of like trying to form like a circle and like looking at the airplane, trying to like figure out like, okay, how big is this thing? Like I assume if she makes it too small, it's literally going to like shatter the airplane, you know?
Oh, I didn't think about that, but you're right.
Like, yeah, it's just going to cut through the airplane probably. Like, I don't know how that would work, but, you know, in any case, like, up to this point, you've only really seen her use the barrier once for, like, a flat surface for Dash to run into. Like, it's like she is obviously not practiced with this ability. So it really wasn't fair to do that at the last moment. So, I mean, it's, you know, you got to do what you got to do, but it's totally understandable. And so they have a nice mom-daughter moment. All the moments with the mom and the kids are really nice. Like when she tells Dash that she's really proud of him after the beginning of the movie where he's like, you don't want me to ever use my powers and you don't really want me to do my best and blah, blah, blah. All of her moments with the kids are really nice and very genuine. So this is one of them, and this is sort of Violet's turning point. We talked a little bit about Violet's voice actors in this movie, how your wife really doesn't like her.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand why, because she just sounds very whiny, and her voice is always like a little bit shaky.
she's
right?
like she's using the least amount of effort possible to talk.
Yeah.
Because like she's a mouse, like she doesn't want to like, you know, draw any attention to herself and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, this is the turning point where like,
But from this point on, I feel like her voice, like they intentionally like made her voice a little stronger, and it becomes much more.
and she moves her hair out of her face too. You know?
Visual stuff like that to show. But it's nice because I think a lot of this, it really doesn't focus on one person in particular, but they all have their moments, and it's very nice. It's very appropriate for each character. So yeah. But she leaves them behind to like stay in the cave while she goes off. And
We have another sleuthing scene. Again, no dialogue.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Incredible just using her powers to like navigate through. There's a scene where her leg gets caught in like an automatic door. And then like her torso gets caught in like another automatic door. These people are just sort of like, what is this?
some people get clotheslined by her when they're not looking.
And so, but she's able to take them all down and get on through. She like, what else? Like, what else?
She
does
pokes her
discover?
head in like the power complex where like one room was like completely off the charts because it's holding Bob down. And
Yeah.
she's like, oh, well, that's where he is, I guess. So
During this time also, Dash like travels through like a tunnel and just like sort of exploring around because he's bored. And then like sees this big old tunnel and it is all like
the
cool.
tunnel turns like metal all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's weird. But
But turns out this whole time they're ready for Project Kronos, which is to launch a rocket in the air all the way to
carrying
Metroville.
Omnidrome 10 or whatever. Yeah.
And it turns out all the exhaust and all the fire is coming through their
That cave, yeah. Oops.
So they run out as fast as they can and then they get out there. The next morning, you know, Elastigirl's still like sleuthing around. And the kids wake up and they see this like parrot, and this parrot is all like, identification please or something.
Yeah.
Finds out that they're intruders and squawks at them, and then so they just have to run because now they're being chased. They're caught on these surveillance cameras. And not only does Mrs. Incredible catch that, but so does Mirage. Mirage catches like the kids kind of coming out there. And so
I don't think Mrs. Incredible sees it actually.
Oh no. Oh, she just goes straight for the prison cell.
Right.
Yeah.
She goes straight for where Bob's at. Yeah.
So Mirage gets to Bob first and like turns off his like torture device. And
Bob is initially not having it.
well, oh man, this is another just like compelling scene.
Yeah. Just like the like pure rage in his face.
So like she turns off the machine. He's brought to his knees. She's trying to lift him up. She's all like, "There isn't much time," and he grabs her by the neck and just like, "No, there isn't."
You're just like, oh.
And like I'm not even gonna attempt to recreate the performance, but it's so compelling of just like he's at rock bottom. He lost his family presumably just because of his like pigheadedness and his foolishness.
Yeah.
So he's got nothing left, you know. But then Elastigirl comes through. Or no, she's all like, they survived, you know. You know, there's two kids like, you know, like running around, and so he's like, extremely elated, like, you know, drops her and
Gives
then
her
like,
a hug.
gives her a hug, and at that moment Elastigirl comes through the door and Mirage is like, "Hi, you must be,"
This
and then
is
gets
incredible.
sucker punched across the jaw by her.
And Mr. Incredible's like, "Hey man, what's that about?"
Hey, she was saving me. No, that's what I was doing.
Yeah. I love her character's like indignantness through all this, right? How she keeps trying to like be mad. Like, cause she is mad, but it's like, I don't know. She obviously suspected more, and like Bob just like doesn't even get it, right? Like, like he immediately is like, "Cheat on you? Like what? No, like how could I do that to you?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, whatever." And he's just like, "No, like you're alive. Like wow, this is awesome." Like everything he says is just like very calm. Like, "Oh, what? Oh, you brought the kids. Well, how come you did that? If you thought there was danger?" She's like, "Hey, I don't think you're taking the proper tone." And he's just like, "Okay."
So the kids are on the run, and then they get stopped by like, you know, the faceless troopers, and then
And their buzzsaw planes.
yeah,
or whatever.
Violet is just all like, "Dash, run!" Just, huh? Run! Oh yeah,
She goes invisible.
yeah. She goes invisible, and then he does his thing. A great chase scene ensues with Jack. With Dash and a bunch of their like flying buzzsaw planes. He's so fast that he can run on the surface of water.
This is like a whole great scene where he's like figuring out his power. The moment when he starts running on the water and just his laugh right there that's an iconic piece of like cinema.
There's where
it's
you
just so good.
There's where you know that he's never like been pushed to his powers to see just like his limits.
Yeah.
And sees that, oh, it turns out I'm fast enough to just run on water.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, basically.
And like either through dumb luck and through effort, he is able to evade all of them and even like blow up a lot of them.
Yeah.
Violet still has just like the one guy after her, and sort of evades from him, but then Dash comes back and like tries to save her.
Right when she's about to get got.
Yeah. And then he's about to fire on Dash, but then Violet comes out with like a big old force field
Like around her
around
entire
herself,
person.
which
Yeah.
she's never done before.
Yeah.
And like I've never seen before, because even Dash is like, "How are you doing that?" She's like, "I don't know." It's like, whatever you're doing, don't stop. And so Dash just starts running like
a big old hamster
in a big
ball.
old hamster ball. Turns out this force field is so amazing that the flying buzzsaw planes just bounce right off.
That's actually really awesome. I never really appreciated that, but it's really satisfying just seeing them like just sort of get grazed by it and then like
And
As
Mr.
they're
Incredible
running.
and Elastigirl are like running after them too.
Yeah.
They end up being run over by the hamster ball, and they're all reunited. And then there's like a brief fight scene where they're all together as a family fighting
it's
down
so
the
good.
buzzsaw
That's
planes.
probably my favorite fight scene.
Here's
and
the
the
thing,
end
what I-
one is great too.
Here's the thing I love about that scene. It is intentionally cut short, comically cut
Yeah,
short. Because
yeah.
then Syndrome just flies in and is like, whoa, time out. And
But
like,
it's so cool getting to
freezes
see
all of them.
like use their powers in front of each other, and
Yeah.
like it's just, and it ends with like Mr. Incredible and Mrs. Incredible being like, "Oh, I love you," like with the big old flaming, and that just seems so appropriate. It's just so neat that they get to like do the stuff that makes them awesome, and they can all like admire each other for it, right?
Yeah.
Like Violet's totally blocking two airplanes firing guns or whatever, and Dash is creating smoke screens, and you know Mrs. Incredible is kicking dudes off their plane, and Mr. Incredible is just punching stuff, and it's just like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's totally a teaser for what's to come, but like seeing it for the first time and seeing how it's so natural, especially to the kids, right? From like now that they've discovered what they're doing is just very, very satisfying and very appropriate. But they get caught.
So back at Metroville, the Omnidroid has emerged, and you know the army is about. They're just like, what is this? And then it like pops out and starts firing on people and whatnot.
And they're shooting it, but it's not doing anything. And like, oh no.
It's there that so all the family gets put back into that prison cell, and Syndrome just reveals his whole entire plan. He's monologuing again, saying that he's gonna show himself as the superhero here by just like fabricating his own
victory.
Yeah, by being able just to fully control the Omnidroid. And then like once he's like had his fill, he's gonna sell all his inventions so that everybody can feel like they're a superhero, because when everybody is super,
no one will be.
That's a callback also to when Dash and Elastigirl are talking in the car. She's just like, everyone's special, Dash, which is another way of saying no one is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What is interesting because they never really address that, but it is just sort of, it's just kind of food for thought, I guess, right?
Yeah,
like they just kind of leave it floating out there, but they do imply that it is kind of a poor way of thinking because it's the villain's philosophy. So I don't know. Yeah.
So, Mr. Incredible starts
monologuing.
He starts monologuing on this long apology to his family and stuff, and all the while Violet just turns on a force field and just rolls on out of there.
Yeah.
And turns off the torture device for each of them. And so they're running through the complex trying to find like a way back to the mainland, and they're like, we need a jet. A jet's not fast enough. Well, what's faster than a jet? How about a rocket? Because it just so happens Syndrome built 2 rockets. And so they're all like, well, to get out of here, we're going to need some help. But Mirage is still around. So she's all like, so she helps them out there. So they basically fly the exact same thing that the Omnidroid was in, except instead of the
like
Omnidroid,
a TV car
they have some sort of
thing.
like RV thing or whatever. Yeah. And so they fly back onto the mainland that way. Meanwhile, the Omnidroid is still causing a ruckus.
There's a great little scene here of them arguing about what exit to take off, which is very like domestic humor, but in this context, it just has like a different element to it.
Sure.
It's really funny.
So now Syndrome has arrived onto the mainland, and like people are all like, who is that? Is that Vironic? No, this isn't Vironic. He's like, no, I'm a new kind of superhero. I'm Syndrome. So he's like flying around the Omnidroid and then like pushing buttons on this remote to like make it seem like he's punching off the arms or stuff.
Yeah.
Turns out though, this robot is super AI sentient and like notices like, hey, why did my arm fall off? Oh, it's that remote. I want that remote, and shoots it off of Syndrome, and like shoots off one of his boots. So he like flies away, and he's useless now.
Yeah, he like collides into a building and completely knocks out.
So then the Incredibles land. There's another scene of Bob's like vulnerability where like he tells everybody just to stay right there and be safe. He'll take care of it. But like Elastigirl's all like, no, we're a team. We have to do this together.
Yeah, Helen initially thinks this is him like trying to prove himself or like show that he doesn't need anybody or whatever. And that's kind of how it appears at first, but he's just like, no, it's like, that's not what it is. And she's like, what is it? He's like, I'm not strong enough. And she's like, oh, is this just a workout? And he's like, no, I can't. Like, he's just having trouble like saying it, obviously. But it comes across like he's just being very selfish and like, oh, this is my time to shine. But like, and then he reveals that he can't lose his family again. Mm-hmm. And he's afraid of losing them in the same way. Like after experiencing that once, he can't deal with that happening again. And it's really like the emotional buildup of the whole movie was like ripe for that moment, right? Mm. It's very real because he like bows his head and like won't even show his face to her because he's like ashamed of it, really.
Yeah.
It's a really, really nice scene. Mm-hmm. Makes them very human, which is really what this whole movie is about. Like all of these characters feel very human in their superhero-ness. Like all the issues they're going through. Like Bob is basically just going through a midlife crisis, right? Like you figure 15 years after his prime, he's probably like early 40s, Mm-hmm. Like at its core, it's kind of just like a midlife crisis movie. But because it just kind of shows that to you and doesn't spend all its time telling you about what a midlife crisis it is, like you just experience the emotion without feeling like you're getting all the tropiness, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about this a little bit with the second movie where it was a little tropey. This movie never feels tropey, even though like some of that stuff is in there. It feels like it's telling a
completely original story.
Yeah, it just the way that it does everything. And like in reality, most movies aren't really, it's really hard to make an original movie, right?
Yeah.
Everything is going to be relying on tropes to some extent. There's nothing new under the sun, blah, blah, blah. But how you do it makes such a big difference. I've said this before, like Toy Story at its core is a buddy movie, right? It's a buddy flick. And yet you don't really think of it like that until someone tells you that's what it is. And you're like, oh, yeah, it is just a buddy movie. And yet all the circumstances surrounding it and the characters in it feel so real and so unique that it feels new. And like, that's what life is, right? Like, so many of the issues you go through in life are not something new that no one has ever experienced before, but it's with individual people who are always just a little bit different and have different motivations. And so when you see Bob's motivation between his like classic male pig-headedness or whatever, right? It humanizes him so much because suddenly he's multidimensional. He like has these different aspects that are influencing other aspects of himself, and it all really comes together in this scene where at first he's acting like Mr. Incredible has throughout the whole movie, and Elastigirl is not having it. But then it comes out, oh, that's why you're acting this way. And it's from such a good heart that you can't help as cheering for everybody. So, yeah, it's a good scene. It's really emblematic of what the whole movie manages to pull off.
So this big old fight scene ensues. Oh, geez, we didn't even talk about Frozone.
What? Where's my super suit?
This scene needs no introduction, so this happens. Anyways,
like those two scenes with Frozone, that and like the intro are like two of the most classic pieces of like animated.
I mean, you tell me you're some
super mega ultra lightning babe.
That's all right with me. I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah, super suit scene. Yeah. So, anyways, he comes on out and he's helping out the fight. They deduce that the same thing. The remote controls the robot.
Yeah, they find that Mr. Incredible finds the remote and it's like the remote controls the robot, and the robot immediately looks at him, and Bob's like, oh.
And so now they're playing keep away with the remote for quite some time.
Oh, there's so many satisfying scenes in here, like where he throws it to Dash, like go long, which is totally a callback to like in the montage where he's playing football. It's just like a dad and a son playing like football with each other, but in like these high stakes, and it's just like, oh, you made the family thing work in this situation. That's so cool. And like mom is looking on like, oh, my baby boy, like in like mortal danger, but like he's doing what he's meant to do, and it's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I don't want to go over everything because I don't want to just like explain everything, but like
you can. It feels like it's so unjust just to say there was a fight scene, and yet you don't want to go into every detail, but like you feel like you have to because every detail is so good.
I know.
And so meaningful. And like when Violet initially saves like Dash from the robot and then like gets knocked out, and then Mr. Incredible's like, F no, and is under them like holding the whole thing up with his like bare hands. It's just like, oh, it's so satisfying. It's so good.
So
Frozone freezes some stuff, I guess. Poor Frozone is just kind of the delay tactic throughout all of this. He's like, let me freeze it. It'll break it in 2 seconds, but at least I bought us 2 seconds. And he does that a lot. So,
but eventually they win.
Yeah,
they win.
Turns out Syndrome didn't really fix the vulnerabilities that his previous robot had. He just kind of made it bigger and harder to exploit, I guess.
Yeah.
But eventually they do, and that's that.
So yeah, everybody's like all happy for them and yada yada. And Rick Dicker is like, like, oh, we've frozen all of Syndrome's assets, and like he's like under all of our surveillance. So if he even so much as a sneeze, we'll be there with a handkerchief and
a hanky and a pair of handcuffs.
Yeah. So
the voice actor really delivers that line well. Really good voice.
So Elastigirl is calling their voicemail, and it turns out the babysitter that Violet and Dash got for Jack Jack is
freaking out
about something and leaving voicemail after voicemail after voicemail until she just says like, oh, your relief worker came, so now everything is fine. They're like, relief person? So they go home to find Syndrome got into their house and is going to steal Jack Jack away from them. So he flies away because his jet is like right above their house.
Blows a hole in their roof.
Yeah. And Jack Jack is like freaking out. He's a baby. And then gets angry, turns into the Human Torch, turns into Metal Mario, and
turns into Demon Baby.
Turns into Demon Baby to the point where he knocks off one of his flying boots.
And the Incredibles like can't see this happening. They're just on the ground freaking out like, what do we do? What do we do? Like throw something. And Mr. Incredible's like, I'm not gonna throw something, I'm gonna hit the baby. Yeah.
So then they instead, Elastigirl just like, throw me.
Yep.
So he throws her and grabs him. He lands inside his jet. Syndrome does. But Mr. Incredible sees his nice car and just throws his car at the jet.
Yep.
And that knocks Syndrome into the plane jet turbine where his cape gets caught. And so the jet blows up. They land safely, and Violet like saves the whole family with a force field,
which is also a very satisfying moment for her character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. everything in this movie comes to such a satisfying conclusion. It's partly all those little things that I mentioned where, with the cape thing coming back into it, or the football scene, like all these small things, but man, those things matter so much because they're so satisfying, because it gives you the impression that like everything you saw mattered, right? And like Mr. Incredible throwing his car at them is such a like symbol, like a symbol. I mixed symbol and emblem. That's funny. An emblem of like, I don't care what it takes. Like, you are not messing with my family. I will throw my nice car that I bought at you. Like, screw you, man. Screw you. But it's just like there are all these moments that like come to something, right? Violet not being able to protect them from this explosion, and then she gets to protect them from an explosion, right? Dash not being able to like fully express his powers, and then doing that in such a satisfying way where he figures out he can like run on top of water, and just them as a family being able to like congratulate each other and like celebrate their strengths, and Mr. Incredible being like, oh, you wear your hair back, Violet, now like it looks good, and just like the sincerity of like a daughter like accepting this compliment from her dad,
Yeah.
just like all these very, very satisfying resolutions for every character individually is there. It's what makes this movie so special. It's one, I mean, there's so many good things in this movie, but that's what really takes it over the top for me.
For the very end of the movie, also, Dash. I almost said Dash.
Dash.
I literally almost said Dash.
You stopped. Good job.
Finally finds his outlet and joins track and field, and is like doing like a sprint, but like his parents are all like go. No, hold back a little bit.
Second place.
And all the kids are like, and Dash is just like, yeah. And then Tony is like there at the meet also and runs into Violet, and Tony is like, you seem different. She's like, I feel different. Is different okay?
And he's like totally like, flustered and like, oh, pretty girl or whatever, whatever.
And like invites her out to a movie and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's an end there too. So then they're leaving the meet, and this big old hole comes out of the ground, and this huge drill, and this mole-like guy just goes,
voiced by,
behold, I am the Underminer.
What's that guy's name again?
John Ratzenberger.
Yeah.
the Pixar staple. Yeah.
Yep.
So he's a supervillain, and the movie just ends with each of the family members, including Jack, putting on their secret masks.
I liked again how it wasn't Mr. Incredible who started it. He like looks at his wife like, what do we do? And she's like already got her mask on along with Violet. And then he looks up at Dash and he's already got his mask on, and he's like, I love my family. I mean, he doesn't say that, but like that's the thing. He doesn't have to say it.
Of course.
You just see it, right? How now everyone is together and they're supporting him, and like they love what he loves, and it's just very satisfying. And then that amazing trumpet screech happens, and that's the end of the movie.
And then starts the end credits.
Yep. Which is hard to turn off, like, to be completely honest.
And that is literally one of the best Pixar movies ever made.
Yeah. It's one of the best animated movies ever made. It really is. I don't know how more to explain it. I always feel a little unsatisfied at end of cast like this because we just decided to do synopsis style because it kind of allows us to do things point by point. But I feel like sometimes we blow past all the little moments that make the movie so special. But at the same time, going through each one of them and quoting the movie is like such an injustice because there's so many lines that Syndrome has that you could go by line and be like, man, this line was really great. Like even when he just randomly gets a Western accent, it seems to fit his over-the-top character so well that it doesn't take you out. It actually like is just entertaining and funny and great for his character, right? And there's so many lines that are just so classic in this movie, right? Where we could say them to you and deliver them horribly and not the way the voice actors did it all. Because the voice actors in this movie are fantastic. Like there's not a single one who I didn't like. Probably the only one is like early movie Violet. Like I totally get that. But I also, and maybe this is just perception more than reality, but I also feel like they did make a like conscious effort to change her voice acting halfway through the movie to coincide with her own character development. And from that point forward, her voice actor is great. Like it always expresses exactly what Violet's supposed to be, right? And what are you going to say bad about Samuel L. Jackson? Like, he's fantastic. And, even Dash, I feel, does such a good job of just being a little kid,
Yeah.
There's not any one of them who doesn't deliver their lines perfectly. And in doing that, it feels like such a drama, like such a high quality. The stakes always feel high because these people are real, you know? So I could rave about this movie forever. I could listen to this soundtrack for ever and ever. The thing that I noticed about, at first, the thing that sort of made me notice how many open spaces there were in thinking about it, because we have seen Incredibles 2, and we don't want to do too much comparison between the two movies, but when I was watching this movie, it really stuck out to me how many more of these open spaces there were, because I liked the music in this one a lot better. And in watching this one again, I noticed how many more opportunities they give the music to shine in these scenes where, quote unquote, nothing is happening, right? Where it's just her sneaking around and like, the base, or like when Mr. Incredible is doing that or whatever. But those scenes obviously aren't designed to let the music, just show off. Like that'd be awkward if that was it. They're just there to show you what is happening and to show you the emotions and to show you these great scenes, which, by today's standards, maybe a lot of these scenes don't look great. Maybe things look a little blocky and a little imperfect, but back then it was amazing. Like, it was top of the line. And even watching it now, it's not bad at all, but it's the one thing that's aged,
Yeah.
So, but the way that they paced those to where they never felt boring and they used them to show off the music was really, really smart and really a good way of making sure every aspect of this movie stood out and was memorable, because this music is so memorable and is so good. And there's so many classic moments in the scenes where I can remember exactly what the music is,
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh, man.
I could rave all the time, and yet I don't know what else I could say about this
know.
movie. It's a weird thing where it's just like, this is 10 out of 10 for me. I'm not saying it's completely perfect, but it's about as close as I can imagine a movie like this getting. And we talked about this in Kung Fu Panda too, where they hadn't really had these action-y animated films before Incredibles, right?
Right.
It was in, I don't want to say it was in an era of superhero movies, because the superhero movies back then were still pretty spaced out. Like, X-Men and Spider-Man were still kind of the exception, and they were like just getting us back to that mode, right? After Superman had kind of fallen off and Batman had George Clooney'd itself and whatever. And so they were like kind of coming back, but even then this was a completely different take on the superhero movie. People like to compare the styles of like DC and Marvel, where it's like DC is about like superheroes trying to be normal people, and like Marvel's about normal people trying to be superheroes or whatever. And I feel like this movie like completely matched those two ideas, right? It felt exactly like both. It was Bob as a superhero trying to adapt to being a normal person, but he still had all the normal person problems, right? So it did a great job of reflecting both of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad we took the time to watch this movie. I'll never be sad about like taking the time to watch this movie.
Sure.
That's it.
Next week should be Muppet Treasure Island then.
We could. I have absolutely no objections. It is summer.
It is summer.
We can do it now.
We could do it.
We're going to do it. There you go. Look forward to Muppet Treasure Island.
Okay.
And who knows what else.
Who knows what else.
Yep.
So then, anything else, Dave?
No. Oh, I mean, look forward to Incredibles 2 first. Incredibles 2 will come right after this. And then eventually it'll be Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah,
so.
eventually.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a full cover up on Muppet Monster Adventure.
What a waste of my life.
Oh, jeez. My heart.
Do you even have the whole game? I thought you just played the demo.
I mean, I have an emulator.
Oh, my gosh. Have you ever actually played it through that whole game?
No.
You're going to tell me how great it is when you haven't even played past the demo.
I mean, you don't know either, do you?
I feel like I have a pretty decent idea. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and conclude this, yeah?
Yeah, it's been long.
Again, if you haven't seen this movie, what is wrong with you?
Just go see it.
Just go see it.
Please. I just want what's best for you.
Alrighty. So thank you for another movie cast with us. We'll get back to the game casts extremely soon. At least after
Hopefully.
well Muppet Monster Adventure will be our return back to gaming.
Glorious return.
So
the game everyone's been waiting to hear about.
So special thanks, of course, to Danny Barrett Hubert for the wonderful artwork, and to the combined efforts of Rob KTA, Expert Novice, and OC Remix for the intro and outro music. And go see the movie. Go see Incredibles 2.
Go see
as
both
well.
movies.
Go see them.
Yeah.
Just do it. Hopefully it's a double feature. You can see them
Oh,
both.
gosh.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.